Welcome back, boys and girls, to another exciting lesson with Miss Brown. Now, but today's lesson should be quite fun. I'm looking forward to doing it. I actually have fun planning it. So before we move any further, grab your writing books and let's get ready to head up. So today we are on book 101, and the title of the book is Lunch to Go. We're going to continue our work on prefixes just because they're going to be coming up the higher the text levels that you go, so it's important just to have an idea of what they mean. So the four prefixes that we're going to look at today are trans. Trans means across. Mid means middle. Dis means the opposite of. And inter means between. So remember, a prefix, you can write this down, a prefix is a word part or a series of letters. They cannot stand on their own as an actual word. But if you put this combination before a base word that can stand by itself, it can change the meaning. The only tricky thing about prefixes is that sometimes you might see a prefix in front of a word and it might have a slightly different meaning than what I gave you here. That happens sometimes in the English language. Okay, but the more advanced you get in your vocabulary, the more words that you know, you'll be able to figure out when it works. Okay, so at this point you can pause me to get this written down, and then we're going to begin. All right, so I'm going to start off by giving you some examples. Okay, so trans means across. And the word that instantly came to mind, I know that you guys are still in primary school, I'm pretty sure that you've talked about slavery, but the word that came to mind for me was the transatlantic slave trade. And that means that they actually took slaves from one country, Africa, to other countries across the Atlantic Ocean. So it's across the Atlantic. So this is the word that I thought of. Transatlantic. Atlantic. Using my syllables. Okay? So when we're finished this, I do want you to go and do some research to find a few more trans examples, a few more mid, dis, and inter. Next word is mid. Mid means middle, and the word that I thought of was the word midway. Okay, so if you're on a path and you get midway there, you're halfway there, right in the middle. Okay, so midway. You're partially there, you're right in the middle. Okay, next word was dis, which means the opposite of, and I thought of the word disagree. Okay, so you are the opposite of what somebody is agreeing to. Disagree. Disagree. And the last prefix, inter, means between. I thought, have you ever been to a play? Have you ever been to New York to one of the Broadway plays? Or even in Bermuda, if you go to a play. They normally have an intermission. So they might play part of the play for maybe an hour. And then they have an intermission, which is like a break in between where you can go out, you can get snacks, refreshments, use the bathroom, and then come back and then the second half plays. So that will be an intermission. So it's the part in between. Intermission. Okay? All right. Okay, so before you turn your books back into me, I'm hoping that you will have time to go and find some more examples of these prefixes in words. And guess what? The more you practice finding words, you're going to know what these prefixes mean, and you're going to be learning some new vocabulary along the way. Okay? All right, so our book today... Okay, let me put you on pause so I can find the book. It disappeared. Okay, I'm back. All right, so grab your books. The book today is called Lunch to Go. And I really enjoyed reading this book, okay, because every day I'm a mom, so I have to pack my kids' lunches, and they're picky eaters. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they ask for things. But regarding foods, I like to try different foods. I love all types of cuisine. I love Indian food. I love food from Asia. I love Mexican food. I love Cuban food. I love Bermudian food. I love all different types of foods. I like to experiment, to try different things from different places, different countries. And my kids are, even though they're picky eaters, they are getting to the point where they do like to try different things. They like to try to be fancy. They think it's being fancy. It's amazing that we don't really stop to think about all the different places that our food comes from. My eldest son, he did a camp several years ago at the Bermuda National Trust. It was an excellent, excellent camp, parents. But once I went to pick him up, and the teacher, she had this huge map of the world on a wall. And she actually, for a project, she actually had the children looking up the different countries and then what food we imported to Bermuda. So there were arrows coming from Asia, there were arrows coming from Africa to Bermuda, and they were showing the foods that we got there, different cheeses, different spices, different meats. It was really, really cool to look at. And it made me think of this book and an activity that you all are going to do. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the book with you. I'm going to discuss a few more features that I want you to think about. But today we're going to be looking at analyzing information, new information. So we already know that you can go to a grocery store and you can purchase food, but we never really think about where that food comes from. Okay, so I'm going to read some of this book with you, and I'm going to point out a few things I want you to think about as you're reading, and I'm going to give you a fun activity, a fun educational, informational activity that you can work on. Okay, so here we go. Lunch to go. Fiction, nonfiction. All right, you guys know it's nonfiction. Nonfiction, not fiction, not fake. It's true. All right, so the table of contents, that's a text feature for nonfiction books. One lunch, foods across the ocean. The apple's long journey, the sandwich from 4 continents. Do you know what continents are? You're going to have to know that for later. Milk from a cow, corn chips and potato chips. The Great Food Exchange. All right, one lunch. Take a peek inside this lunch bag. There's a turkey sandwich with lettuce and tomato, an apple, a carton of milk, and a bag of chips. It's a simple lunch, but at one time, no one on earth had all these foods in one lunch bag. The foods only existed on different continents, 4 to be exact. Okay, some more information. This bag lunch was brought to you by the explorers, soldiers, settlers, and traders who carried these foods around the world. Over thousands of years, explorers, traders, settlers, and soldiers carried foods across the land, bringing new foods to people in other places. Foods traveled across deserts, over mountains, and along rivers. But food rarely crossed oceans until 1492. When an explorer named Christopher Columbus tried to sail around the world. Okay, foods cross the ocean. So there's the Atlantic. Remember I told you about the Atlantic? Atlantic Ocean. Christopher Columbus sailed west from Europe. So here's Europe. This is west, coming this way. Across the Atlantic Ocean looking for the continent of Asia. They keep talking about this word continent. Instead, he landed on the continents of North America, South America, called the Americas. People who lived in Europe didn't know this land existed. What are the Americas? The Americas included the continents of North America and South America. After Columbus's voyage, these foods traveled across the ocean from the Americas to Europe, Africa, and Asia. Okay, all right, so they keep talking about continents. Have you heard that term before? So when I was a little girl, I used to think that, well, when I was in high school, I used to think that history and geography were the most boring subjects ever. I was just so bored out of my mind. But that's because the teachers didn't really make it interesting. They could have tried a little bit harder. So I think if they would have tried harder, I might have paid attention a bit more in those subjects. So basically, the world is broken up into different bodies of land, okay, different portions of land. And there are actually 7 bodies of land, okay? So they are. These are the continents. The continent of North America, South America, there are 7 altogether, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. So these are the 6 continents, but I told you that there are 7. What's the last continent? The last continent, can you say before I do, is Antarctica. Okay, so it's really cold, nothing is really grown there because it's too cold, too much ice and snow. It's down here on the map. Okay, so food comes from all of these continents. So we're in Little Bermuda, we're like a little dot right in the Atlantic Ocean. So we have to get food imported to us from all these different countries. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to continue reading all of Lunch to Go. As you're reading, I want you to think about how our food is imported. Think about how explorers, them exploring all over the world and bringing gifts and bringing food from one place to another, how these new places were able to start growing their own food and getting their own food. So I want you to continue reading this book, and I'm going to give you an activity to do. Okay, so you should have had enough time reading the rest of lunch to go. All right, so I told you our comprehension today is I want you to be thinking about what you already know about food and how your parents get you food and some new information, okay? So it's a tricky term. It's called synthesizing new information about familiar topics. What that means is that you learned some new things today. You learned about different places where we get our food from. Everything is just not magically at Lindo's, and it has to come from somewhere else. So you got to learn a little bit of that today. So there are two things I want you to think about, okay? All right, so number one, I'm going to explain what this means. Visit the interactive crop map and list some of your favorite foods from each continent except Antarctica. So I told you before that the continents are basically divisions of land. Okay, so it's broken up into divisions of land. I told you what the 7 are already, so you're going to have to look them back up or go back again just to listen to what they are. But there is a map I'm going to show to you. I'm going to put the link in on the page, this YouTube video page. But I basically want you to go to this crop map. I want you to go to each continent. I want you to look at the foods that come from those places, those countries, those continents rather. And I want you to make a list of the foods that you enjoy eating that come from these continents. So I'm going to move you so I can show you my computer so you can see what the map looks like. All right, so you are looking at my computer. So here is a map of the world. Right here we have the continent of South America, and these are some foods that come from South America. So they have cassava, chilies, cocoa beans. I see some pineapples here, pumpkins. Do you like any of those foods? If you do, you will put South America, because that's the continent, and then you will put some of the foods that you like. Now I'm up here in North America. Here are some foods that come from North America. I see blueberries, cranberries, grapes, raspberries, strawberries, pumpkin again. So but basically what I want you to do is I want you to basically visit each continent, have a look at some of the foods that come from those places, okay, and list foods that you like to eat. With Australia, they only have one, so you can use this whole orange region. Okay? All right, so that's the first thing that you're going to do. I'm going to put you back on pause to explain the second. I'm back. All right, so the second thing that I want you to think about is, do you think it's better for Bermudians to grow their own food or import? Why? So there are many Bermudian farmers who grow their own vegetables, fruits. We have cows here, we have dairy here, we have eggs here. There are people who, is it called culling chickens? I think it's called culling chickens, where they kill the chickens where we can eat it. There's some beef and some lamb. Is it better to just buy Bermuda, to just have people growing things here and we support Bermudians? Or do you think it's totally fine if we continue to import things? What impact does that have on the environment when we have to import all these foods? How do they get here? So you might be saying plane, you might be saying boat. There's a cost involved. So I want you to do a little bit of research. You know, you can talk to your parents, ask your parents, but look online to see, is it better to produce in your own country, or is it better to import? Okay, so all of this, I want it to go into your writing books. Okay, so that is our lesson for today. I hope that you learned something new, and I will see you next time. Bye.